They mocked the quiet new nurse until a Navy helicopter landed, demanding their SEAL combat. Pro to the staff at Mercy General, Lily Bennett was a liability, a silent, trembling nurse they had mocked for 3 months because she couldn't bring herself to look a doctor in the eye. They mistook her shaking hands for weakness, never suspecting that those same hands had once held the lives of Tier 1 operators together in the darkest valleys of Afghanistan. They laughed at the mouse, completely unaware she was a ghost, a legend among the Navy SEALs. The laughter died the moment a Black Hawk helicopter descended on the hospital parking lot, carrying soldiers who had come to demand their combat legend back. The fluorescent lights of St. Jude's Medical Center in Seattle hummed with that persistent, headache-inducing frequency known only to night shift workers. It was 2 a.m., the witching hour, when the caffeine wears off and the staff's patience wears thin. Lily Bennett stood at the nurse's station, meticulously organizing patient charts. She was 32, though the premature gray streaks in her messy bun and the deep lines around her eyes made her look decades older. She moved with a stiff, deliberate slowness, keeping her head down and her shoulders hunched, as if she were perpetually bracing for an impact that never came. "Check out the ghost," whispered Jessica, the charge nurse, leaning against the counter with a smirk. She gestured toward Lily. "I swear I dropped a bedpan 5 feet from her yesterday, and she flinched like a grenade went off. How did HR clear her? She's useless." Dr. Caleb Sterling, an arrogant second-year resident who walked the halls like he owned the building, chuckled while signing a prescription. "She's a diversity hire or a charity case, Jess. Has to be. I asked her for a 16-gauge for during a trauma intake last night, and she just stared at the tray for 5 seconds before moving. 5 seconds. In my world, 5 seconds is a lifetime." Lily heard them. She always heard them. Her hearing had been tuned in environments where the snap of a twig meant an ambush. But she said nothing. She simply tightened her grip on her clipboard until her knuckles turned white. She wasn't just quiet. She was aggressively submissive. She took the worst shifts without complaint and cleaned up messes the orderlies ignored. She let Dr. Sterling berate her for errors she had made. She had transferred from a VA hospital in Ohio with a redacted file that the administrator had only glanced at before hiring her. To everyone at St. Jude's, Lily Bennett was a washed-up, anxious burnout who couldn't hack it in a real ER. "Bennett." Sterling's voice cracked through the hallway like a whip. Lily didn't jump, but she froze. She turned slowly. "Yes, doctor. Room 402. The post-op appendectomy. His BP is spiking. I told you to push labetalol 20 minutes ago. Why isn't it charted?" Sterling stood over her, using his height to intimidate. I checked his vitals, doctor," Lily said, her voice a raspy whisper. "His heart rate is bradycardic. If I pushed labetalol, it could have bottomed him out. I was waiting for you to." "You were waiting?" Sterling slammed his hand on the counter. The loud bang made 2 other nurses jump. Lily didn't blink, but her pupils dilated. "You don't wait to think, Bennett. You do what I order. You are a nurse. I am a doctor. If I say push the meds, you push the meds. Do I need to report you for insubordination again?" "No, sir," Lily said, lowering her eyes to his scuffed loafers. "I'll do it." She walked away, feeling the heat of their stares burning into her back. "Pathetic," Jessica muttered as Lily vanished into the medication room. "She's going to kill someone one day." Lily leaned against the cool tile wall of the med room, her breathing shallow. She closed her eyes. For a split second, the smell of antiseptic vanished, replaced by burning jet fuel and copper-scented blood. She saw the face of a young man, half his jaw missing, gripping her hand in the back of a Pave Hawk helicopter. "Stay with me. Documents stay with me." She shook her head violently and snapped the rubber band on her wrist, a grounding technique her therapist had taught her. She wasn't Doc anymore. She was just Nurse Bennett, and she needed this job. She needed the quiet. She needed the anonymity. But the quiet was about to be broken. 2 weeks later, the facade began to crack. It was a chaotic Tuesday afternoon. A massive pileup on I-5 had flooded the ER. St. Jude's was at capacity. Every bay was full, doctors were shouting orders, and the floor was slick with saline and blood. Lily was assigned to Triage Bay 3, assisting Dr. Sterling with a code yellow. The patient was a middle-aged construction worker named Mike, who had been pulled from a crushed sedan. He was conscious and talking, but complaining of intense chest pain. "It's just bruising from the seatbelt," Sterling announced dismissively, shining a pen light into Mike's eyes. "Get him a chest x-ray when the machine opens up. Give him some Tylenol and move him to the hallway. We need this bed for the criticals." "Doc, it hurts to breathe," Mike wheezed, clutching his left side. "You broke a rib, Mike. It hurts." "That's how it works," Sterling snapped, turning to leave. "Bennett, move him." Lily moved to the bedside to unlock the wheels, but she paused. She looked at Mike. She saw the way his jugular vein was slightly distended, pulsing against the skin of his neck. She watched his breathing. It wasn't just shallow, it was asymmetrical. "Stop," Lily said. Sterling spun around, sweat dripping from his brow. "Excuse me." "Don't move him," Lily said. Her voice was different now. The rasp was gone. It was flat, cold, and commanding. "He's not stable. I'm the attending here, Bennett. I cleared him. Move the damn bed." "Look at his JVD," Lily said, pointing to the man's neck. "Look at the tracheal deviation starting. It's slight, but it's there. Listen to his speech pattern. He's air-hungry. This isn't a broken rib. It's a tension pneumothorax, and it's evolving fast. If you move him to the hallway, he codes in 5 minutes. He dies in 7. The entire bay went silent. Jessica, who was stocking gauze nearby, froze. Dr. Sterling looked at Lily as if the hospital mouse had just spoken in tongues. "You are a nurse," Sterling hissed, stepping into her personal space. "You do not diagnose. You do not speak. You." Beep, beep, beep. The monitor screamed. Mike's eyes rolled back into his head. His blood pressure plummeted instantly to 60/40. "He's crashing," Jessica yelled. Sterling panicked. The arrogance drained from his face, replaced by the terrified incompetence of a resident who had made the wrong call. Get the crash cart. Tube him. Get anesthesia down here." "No time," Lily said. She didn't wait for permission. She didn't tremble. In one fluid motion, Lily reached in her pocket. She didn't have a scalpel, so she pulled out a thick 14-gauge angiocath needle and ripped Mike's gown open. "Bennett, what the hell are you doing?" Sterling shouted, reaching for her arm. Lily caught Sterling's wrist midair. Her grip was iron. She didn't even look at him. Her eyes were locked on the patient's second intercostal space. She squeezed Sterling's wrist so hard the doctor yelped and dropped to one knee. "Step back," she ordered. It wasn't a request. It was a field order. Lily palpated the chest wall once, then twice. Thump! Without a second of hesitation, she drove the needle into Mike's chest. The sound of trapped air escaping the cavity was audible even over the chaos of the ER. A long, sharp hiss like a tire deflating. Mike gasped a massive, life-affirming intake of breath. Instantly, the monitor stabilized. The heart rate settled, and his blood pressure began to climb. Lily taped the needle in place, checked his pupils, and finally let out the breath she'd been holding. She turned to find the entire trauma team staring at her in stunned silence. Sterling was clutching his wrist, his face a mask of humiliation and shock. "Needle decompression," Lily said quietly. She reverted instantly to her submissive posture, her shoulders slumping. "Standard protocol for that kind of thing." "Sorry, doctor. I panicked." "You panicked," Sterling whispered, standing up slowly. "You just performed an advanced surgical procedure without a license. You assaulted a doctor. You." He glanced at the patient, who was now pink and breathing comfortably. He couldn't deny she had saved the man's life, but his ego was bruised far worse than his wrist. "Get out," Sterling said, his voice trembling with rage. "Get out of my ER. You're done, Bennett. I'm going to the board. You'll never work in medicine again." Lily nodded, her eyes fixed on the floor. "Yes, doctor." She walked out of the ER, passing the stunned staff without a word. In the locker room, she sat on a bench and began to untie her shoes. She was fired. It was over. She would have to move again, find another small town, and disappear. As she reached for her bag, Her hand brushed against the worn dog tags tucked into an inner pocket. Lieutenant Commander S. Mitchell, DevGru support. Call sign, Valkyrie. She pushed them deep into the bag. Lily Bennett, she told herself. My name is Lily Bennett. Then, the windows began to vibrate. It started as a low, thumping rhythm, the sound of rotors. But this wasn't the usual medevac chopper. The sound was heavier, deeper, a mechanical growl that Lily knew better than her own heartbeat. She froze, looking up at the high locker room window. No, she whispered. Not here. Please, not here. The sound intensified, shaking dust from the ceiling tiles. The noise wasn't just a sound anymore. It was a physical pressure wave that rattled the surgical instruments 5 floors up. In the ER, chaos erupted. Patients screamed and clutched their ears. The automatic doors to the ambulance bay blew open and jammed, forced by the sheer power of the downwash. Outside, descending directly onto Dr. Sterling's reserve parking spot, a massive shadow blocked the sun. It was an MH-60M Black Hawk, but not the standard military version. This machine was matte black, devoid of reflective surfaces, with no identifying numbers or stars. It was a ghost bird, an asset of JSOC. Dr. Sterling, still fuming, stormed toward the ambulance bay, followed by Mr. Henderson, the administrator, and Paul, the hospital's lone security guard. This is insane, Sterling screamed over the roar. They're landing in the staff lot. That's an FAA violation. I'm going to have their licenses. Paul, get their badge numbers. Paul clutched his hat, looking at Sterling as if he were mad. Doctor, that's a military chopper. I can't just. I don't care who they are. They're damaging my BMW. The Black Hawk touched down, its landing gear groaning under the weight. The rotors didn't stop. They stayed at a high idle, kicking up a storm of grit and gravel that pelted Sterling's face. The side doors slid open with a metallic clack, and 4 men jumped out. They didn't look like the National Guard. These men were bearded, their faces smeared with grease and dirt. They wore multicam gear stretched over heavy armor. Their high-cut helmets were adorned with quad-lens night vision goggles, and they were armed with suppressed 416 Hong Kong dollars rifles. They moved with a predatory, fluid grace, scanning the perimeter like they were securing a landing zone in hostile territory. Hey! Sterling marched forward, his white coat flapping violently. He held up a hand. You cannot land here. This is a private facility. You're trespassing. The lead operator, a towering man with a thick red beard and a scar through his left eyebrow, didn't even slow down. He walked through Sterling as if the doctor were a ghost, his shoulder checking him hard enough to send Sterling stumbling into a row of shopping carts. The operator marched straight for the doors, tapping his headset. Havoc to base. We are on deck. Securing the asset now. Mr. Henderson tried to block the entrance. Now see here. I am the administrator. You cannot bring weapons in here. Who is in charge? The lead operator stopped. His eyes were icy blue and bloodshot. He looked like he hadn't slept in 3 days. His patch read, Breaker. Move, Breaker said. His voice was like grinding gravel, low and dangerous. I will call the police. Henderson squeaked. Breaker stepped closer, looming over him. Sir, we are operating under Title 50 authority. If you do not move, my team will breach these doors and you will be detained for interfering with a federal operation. Now, move. Henderson scrambled aside. The 4 operators stormed into the ER. The waiting room fell dead silent. These men brought the smell of ozone, aviation fuel, and sweat into the sterile room. Sterling ran in after them, panting. Paul, stop them. They're looking for drugs. That has to be it. Breaker ignored the patients and the doctors, scanning the nurse's station. Where is she? He barked. Jessica, the charge nurse, trembled behind the counter. Who? The nurse, Breaker said, his hand resting habitually near his sidearm. New hire. Quiet. Scars on her hands. Where is Valkyrie? Valkyrie. Jessica stammered. We don't have a Valkyrie. We have a Lily. Lily Bennett. Breaker looked at his team. Clear the back. Find her. You're looking for Bennett. Sterling let out a hysterical, high-pitched laugh. The mouse? The incompetent one? I just fired her. She's in the locker room packing her trash. You guys are here to arrest her, right? I knew she was a fraud. Breaker turned slowly to face Sterling. The other three operators stopped, their hands tightening on their rifles. The air in the room turned heavy. You fired her? Breaker asked softly. Damn right I did. Sterling puffed out his chest. She assaulted me. She performed an unauthorized procedure. She's unstable. Breaker walked up to Sterling until they were nose to nose. If you fired her, Breaker whispered, then you just compromised the most valuable medical asset the United States Navy possesses. And if she's left this building, Doctor, I'm going to hold you personally responsible for the death of the man in that chopper. Sterling blinked, his voice failing him. What? Check the locker room. Breaker shouted. Go. Lily had her shoes tied and her bag slung over her shoulder. She was walking toward the back exit, intending to slip out the fire escape and vanish. She heard the commotion, the shouting, the heavy cadence of boots on linoleum. She knew that sound. Don't turn around, she told herself. Just keep walking. You're Lily Bennett. You're a nobody. Valkyrie. The voice echoed off the metal lockers. It was a voice she hadn't heard in 18 months, a voice she had tried to drown out with therapy and silence. Lily froze, her hand hovering over the push bar of the exit door. Don't make me chase you, Lily, the voice said, softer now, pleading. Lily slowly turned around. Standing in the doorway was Commander Jack Breaker Hayes. He looked older, more gray in his beard, darker circles under his eyes. But he was still the mountain of a man who had carried her out of the mountains when she'd taken shrapnel to the leg. I'm not her anymore, Jack, Lily said, her voice shaking. I'm retired, Jack. I'm out. I signed the papers. There is no out for people like us, Lily, Jack said, stepping fully into the room. He had left his rifle with his team in the hall and approached her now with his hands open, a gesture of peace. You know I can't do it, Lily whispered, tears welling in her eyes. I can't lose another one. I can't have that blood on my hands again. I'm just a nurse now. I hand out Tylenol and get yelled at by residents. It's peaceful. Peaceful, Jack scoffed gently. I saw you in the hall. You look like a caged animal. You're dying here, Lily. Slowly. We both know it. Lily hardened her expression. Why are you here, Jack? You didn't land a bird in a civilian parking lot just to say hello. Jack's face fell. The warrior mask slipped, revealing a terrified friend. It's Texas. The blood drained from Lily's face. We were on a training op near the border, Jack explained, his voice thick. Live fire. Something went wrong with the breach. A ricochet or a malfunction. He took a hit in the neck, just above the clavicle. It clipped the artery. We have a field dressing on it, but he's bleeding out. We couldn't make it back to the base. This was the closest level 1 center. Then bring him to the ER. Lily shouted. Sterling is an idiot, but the trauma team is capable. They have surgeons. They can't touch him, Jack said grimly. What? What? Because of the round that hit him. Jack hesitated. It's experimental ordnance, a prototype fragmenting round. It's lodged against the spine. If a civilian surgeon tries to pull it out the way they learned in med school, it'll detonate, or it'll shred his spinal cord. They don't know the ballistics. But you do, Lily. You helped design the protocol for field extraction of unexploded ordnance. You're the only one who's ever done it and kept the patient alive. Lily leaned against the lockers, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Jack, I haven't held a scalpel in a year. My hands, they shake. Jack reached out and took her hands in his. They were trembling. They shake because you're holding back, he said intensely. They shake because you're a racehorse pulling a milk cart. Look at me. She looked up. Tex is dying. He is maybe 10 minutes. He's in the bird, and he's asking for you. He didn't even want us to land. He said, don't drag her back in. But I couldn't let him go. I need you, Lily. I need the ghost. Lily looked at her hands, then at her cheap scrubs. She thought about Sterling's sneer and the hollow silence of her new life. Then she thought about Tex, the kid from Oklahoma who played the harmonica around the fire, the boy who had saved her life in Syria. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She pictured the internal anatomy, the carotid sheath, the brachial plexus, the spinous process. When she opened her eyes, the tears were gone. The fear was gone. The mouse was dead. She grabbed a pair of trauma shears from her locker and shoved them into her waistband. She ripped the hair tie from her head, tightening her bun until the skin on her face pulled taut. "Where is he?" she asked, her voice cold as steel. "Back of the bird," Jack said, a grim grin breaking through his beard. "Get him in a trauma bay 1 now," Lily commanded, marching past him. "I need 6 units of O-negative, unwarmed. I need the vascular tray, the thoracotomy kit, and a magnet. A powerful one. A magnet," Jack asked, jogging to keep up. "The round is magnetically triggered," Lily said, throwing open the locker room doors. "If we use steel tools near it, it blows. I need the titanium set. Does this hospital have an MRI suite?" "I think so. Get your boys to rate it. I need non-ferrous instruments." "Go!" They burst into the hallway. Dr. Sterling was still there, ranting into his cell phone. "Yes, they have guns. They're threatening me." He looked up and saw Lily marching toward him, flanked by the massive frame of Breaker. "You," Sterling pointed at her. "I told you to leave. Security, escort her out." Lily didn't slow down. She walked straight up to him. "Get out of my way, Caleb." "Excuse me? I am the attending." Lily didn't wait. She placed a palm on his chest and shoved. It wasn't a polite push. It was a tactical strike to the sternum. Sterling flew backward, tripping over his own feet and landing hard on his backside. "I am commandeering Trauma Bay 1, Lily announced to the stunned staff, her voice projecting with the absolute authority of a commanding officer. "I have a code black surgical emergency incoming. Jessica, get the blood bank on the line. Tell them if I don't have 6 units of ONEG in 2 minutes, I will personally come down there and drain it from their veins." "Yes, Lily," Jessica squeaked, grabbing the phone instantly. "It's not Lily," Breaker yelled as he ran toward the exit to help his team. "It's Lieutenant Commander Mitchell. You will follow her orders, or you will answer to the United States Navy." The ER doors blew open again. 2 SEALs rushed in, carrying a stretcher. On it lay a young man, pale as a ghost, covered in blood-soaked combat gear. Lily looked at the wound. "Gloves," she snapped, holding her hand out without looking. A nurse she had never spoken to slapped a pair of sterile gloves into her palm. Lily snapped them on. "Let's go to work." Trauma Bay 1 had been transformed into a forward operating base. Breaker and a quiet sniper named Ghost stood guard at the double doors, weapons held across their chests to barricade the room. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of copper and isopropyl alcohol. "BP is 70/40. Jessica shouted. She had stayed, defying Sterling's orders to evacuate. "He's in hypovolemic shock, Lily. We're losing him." "Pressers running wide open," Lily commanded, her eyes locked on the jagged entry wound. "Hang the second bag of ONEG. I need his pressure at 90 systolic before I go digging, or his heart will empty before I can clamp the bleeder." The doors rattled as someone tried to force them open. "Open this door. This is a lawsuit waiting to happen." Sterling's muffled voice screamed from the hall. Breaker didn't budge. He looked through the small glass window, his face a mask of stone, and simply turned the deadbolt. "Ignore him," Lily said, her voice eerily calm. She held out her hand. "MRI kit." A terrified radiology tech named Dave stepped forward with a tray of plastic and titanium instruments. I brought everything we had." "Good job, Dave," Lily said softly. "Now step back behind the lead shield." She picked up a pair of titanium forceps and took a breath. The room fell silent, save for the rhythmic whoosh click of the ventilator. Lily looked at the wound. The experimental smart frag round was designed to detonate upon sensing the magnetic signature of an engine block, but it had malfunctioned. It was lodged dangerously close to the carotid artery, pressing against the nerves. "Jack," Lily said without looking up, "hold his head. Don't let him move a millimeter. If he coughs, if he flinches, this thing could shift. If it shifts, it detonates. And if it detonates, everyone in this room dies." Jessica gasped, her voice a tiny sliver of fear. It's live. "It's very live," Lily said, her voice dropping into a low, steady register. "Jack, traction." Breaker stepped to the head of the bed, placing his massive, gloved hands on Tex's temples. He looked down at his teammate, then up at Lily with a look of absolute conviction. I trust you, Val. Bring him home. Lily lowered the forceps. Her hands, the ones everyone had mocked for trembling over a coffee cup, were now supernaturally still. It was as if the adrenaline had cauterized her anxiety. She was no longer the mouse. She was the machine. She guided the forceps into the wound tract. I can feel the casing, she whispered. It's jagged. It's wrapped in the fascia. Tex's heart rate spiked to 140. He's feeling it, Lily murmured. Anesthesia isn't deep enough. Push another 50 of rock and 100 of fentanyl. Pushing, Jessica confirmed, her movements sharp and synchronized. Lily worked with microscopic precision. She couldn't use suction. The metal tip might trigger the fuse. Instead, she used gauze sponges to clear the field, dabbing blindly at the blood welling from the jugular. I have the bleeder. Partial transection of the internal jugular. I'm clamping it now. She secured the vein with a plastic hemostat, and the bleeding slowed. Okay, now for the hardware. She went deeper. The tip of the forceps brushed against something hard, and a faint, high-pitched whine emitted from the wound. Ree! Everyone froze. What is that? Dave whispered from behind the lead shield. Capacitor charge, Breaker said, sweat dripping down his nose. It's waking up. Don't move, Lily hissed. The whine grew higher, more urgent. The round was sensing the disturbance, calculating whether to detonate. Lily closed her eyes for a split second, visualizing the schematic of the 4 Malawian Kwacha's smart frag she'd studied years ago. It had a 3-second delay once the anti-tamper circuit tripped. I have to pull it, Lily said. If I go slow, it blows. If I yank it, I might tear the artery. Your call, Valkyrie, Breaker said. On 3, Lily adjusted her grip and dug her heels into the floor. 1. The whine became a scream. 2. Outside, Sterling was pounding on the glass door, oblivious to the fact that he was trying to break into a blast zone. 3. Lily pulled. It wasn't a yank, but a smooth, powerful extraction. With a wet shuck sound, the small cylindrical object came free. The whining stopped. Lily didn't celebrate. She turned and placed the device into a saline-filled basin Dave was holding. Dave, run, Lily shouted. Take that to the loading dock. Throw it as far as you can into the vacant lot. Go. Dave didn't hesitate. He grabbed the basin and sprinted out the back door. Breaker watched him go, then looked back at Lily. Clear. Not yet, Lily said, dropping the plastic tools and grabbing a standard steel needle driver. Now I have to sew his neck back together before he bleeds out. Give me 4-0 proline now. 10 seconds later, a dull, thumping boom shook the hospital. Car alarms began to wail as the shockwave rattled the cabinets in the trauma bay. Dave had made the throw. Sterling stopped pounding on the door. The silence in the hallway was absolute. Inside, Lily didn't even flinch. She was throwing stitches in a blur of motion, tying knots, closing layers, and sealing the vessel. BP rising. Jessica said, her voice filled with awe. 100/60. Sinus rhythm. He's stabilizing. Lily placed the final stitch and cut the thread. She applied a sterile dressing, stripped off her bloody gloves, and looked at Breaker. He's going to make it. Then the adrenaline dumped. Her knees buckled. Breaker caught her before she hit the floor. Easy, Doc, he smiled. You did good. When the doors to Trauma Bay 1 were finally unlocked, a crowd was waiting. It wasn't just Sterling. The CEO, Mr. Henderson, was there, along with the chief of medicine, Dr. Aristhorne. Lily walked out first, wiping blood from her forehead. Breaker was a step behind her, rifle slung, looking like a bodyguard for a head of state. Arrest her, Sterling shouted, pointing a shaking finger. She stole supplies. She set off an explosion. Officer, take her into custody. The police looked uncertain, glancing at the massive seal and the smoke rising from the vacant lot. Miss Bennett, one officer said, we need to ask you some questions. She's not saying a word, Breaker rumbled. This is a civilian matter. Henderson squeaked. She is fired, and we are pressing charges for reckless endangerment. Reckless? The voice came from inside the bay. The crowd parted as Tex sat up on the gurney. He was pale and bandaged, but very much awake. He swung his legs over the side. Tex, stay down. Lily ordered. I'm good, Val. Tex rasped. He stood up, swaying slightly, and stumbled to the doorway. He looked at Sterling and Henderson. Do you know who you're talking to? She's a nurse, Sterling spat. A quiet, incompetent nurse. Quiet. Tex laughed, a dry, painful sound. Yeah, she's quiet. You get quiet when you spend 2 days in a ditch in Syria, keeping pressure on a femoral artery with one hand and returning fire with the other. You get quiet when you have to choose which of your friends lives because you only have one bag of plasma left. The hallway went dead silent. Lily Bennett is a cover name, Tex said, pointing at her. That woman is Lieutenant Commander Lily Mitchell. Call sign, Valkyrie. She was the lead medical officer for DevGru Red Squadron. She has a silver star and 2 purple hearts. She didn't get those scars on her hands dropping bedpans. She got them pulling my ass out of a burning fuselage in Kandahar. Sterling's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Is this true? Dr. Thorne asked, stepping forward. A former Army surgeon himself, recognition suddenly dawned on him. Mitchell? The Paktia province ambush? That was you. Lily nodded once. Yes, sir. My God, Thorne whispered. You performed a thoracotomy in the back of a moving Chinook under RPG fire. They use your case study in the trauma curriculum. Thorne turned to Sterling, his face etched with withering disgust. Dr. Sterling, you told me this morning that Nurse Bennett was inept. You attempted to prevent a life-saving surgery because of protocol? She didn't follow the chain of command, Sterling stammered. She is the chain of command, Breaker interjected. In a trauma scenario, her authority supersedes yours, mine, and honestly, if the president were bleeding out, she'd supersede him, too. Breaker reached into his pocket, pulled out a satellite phone, and hit speaker. This is Admiral Olai, JSOC Command. A voice boomed from the tiny speaker. Put Commander Hayes on. I'm here, Admiral, Breaker said. Target secured. Assets stabilized. But we have a situation with the local administration. Put them on. The Admiral's voice sliced through the air. Breaker shoved the phone at Mr. Henderson, who took it with trembling hands. HLO. Listen to me closely, the Admiral barked. The woman standing in front of you is a protected national asset. You're currently impeding a military operation. If you press a single charge against Commander Mitchell, I will have your hospital's federal funding pulled so fast the lights will go out before you can hang up. Do I make myself clear? Crystal clear, Admiral, Henderson squeaked. No charges. Absolutely none. Good. Put Mitchell on. Lily took the phone, holding it to her ear. Admiral, his voice softened. Lily, we need you back. You can't hide in a civilian ER forever. You're a healer, but you're a warrior first. The team is rotating back to the sandbox in 48 hours. There's an empty seat on the bird. It's yours if you want it. Lily looked around the ER. She saw the awe in Jessica's eyes and the lingering fear in Sterling's. She saw the sterile white walls that had felt like a prison for the last year. Then she looked at Tex, alive and breathing because of her, and Breaker, her brother in arms. Finally, she looked down at her hands. They were perfectly still. Admiral, Lily started, pausing as she looked at Dr. Sterling one last time. Dr. Sterling, about the patient in room 402 from 2 weeks ago? You were right. I didn't push the labetalol. Sterling blinked. What? I didn't push it because he was allergic to beta blockers. It was in his file. If I had followed your order, I would have killed him. I fixed your mistake, just like I fixed this one. She spoke into the phone again, loud enough for everyone to hear. Admiral, I'm not coming back to the teams. Breaker looked shocked. Lily, you just proved you still have it. You're the best there is. I have the skills, Jack, Lily said, her voice steady. But I don't have the hunger for the fight anymore. She walked over to Tex and gently adjusted his bandage. The war needs fighters, but the fighters need teachers. I'm tired of patching up holes in boys who shouldn't have been there in the first place. I'm tired of losing friends. Admiral, she continued, I won't deploy. My days in the field are done. But you have a backlog of 300 combat medic candidates learning outdated protocols from books written a decade ago. They need someone who knows what modern ballistics actually do to a human body. There was a pause on the line. You want to be an instructor? I want to be the lead instructor for the Special Operations Combat Medic course, Lily corrected. I want full autonomy over the curriculum, and I want my commission reinstated stateside only. I'll teach them how to keep these boys alive, so I don't have to do it myself. Done, the Admiral said instantly. Report to Coronado on Monday. Welcome home, Valkyrie. Breaker grinned, clapping a heavy hand on her shoulder. Instructor Mitchell, God help those recruits. You're going to eat them alive. Only the weak ones, Lily smiled. The dynamic in a room had shifted permanently. She was no longer the subordinate. She was the highest-ranking officer in the room. She walked up to Jessica, who flinched slightly, but Lily took her hand. You stayed, Lily said softly. When Sterling ran, you held the line. You're a good nurse, Jess. Don't let anyone like him convince you otherwise. Jessica teared up, nodding. Thank you, Commander. Finally, Lily turned to Caleb Sterling. He was leaning against the wall, looking like a deflated balloon. Dr. Sterling, she said. He looked up, flinching. You have good hands. Mechanically, you're a decent surgeon. But medicine isn't about mechanics. It's about humility. You almost killed a man today because you couldn't admit that a nurse might know something you didn't. You treat titles, not patients. She stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. I'm leaving. You'll keep your job and your parking spot. But every time you walk into a trauma bay, remember today. Remember that the person you're yelling at might be the only thing standing between your patient and a body bag. Be better, Caleb, or get out of the way. She didn't wait for an answer. Let's go, she told the SEALs. We can give you a lift, Breaker offered. Beats taking the bus. Lily laughed. Yeah, I guess one last ride won't hurt. Lily Mitchell, the Mouse of Mercy General, walked out the automatic doors, flanked by 4 of the deadliest men on the planet. As the Black Hawk lifted off, blowing debris over Sterling's BMW one last time, Lily looked down at the shrinking hospital. She wasn't running away this time. She was moving forward. She pulled the dog tags from her pocket and placed them around her neck. The cold metal felt right. Valkyrie was back. 6 months later, the lecture hall at the Naval Amphibious Base in Coronado was stiflingly hot. 50 young candidates sat in rigid silence. The door opened, and Lieutenant Commander Lily Mitchell walked in. She wore crisp navy fatigues, the silver oak leaf shining on her collar. She stopped at the podium and waited for absolute silence. My name is Commander Mitchell, she said, her voice projecting effortlessly. Most of you think you're here to learn how to put on a tourniquet. You're wrong. You can teach a monkey to do that. She clicked a remote, and a video of a chaotic ambush filled the screen. You're here to learn how to think when the world is ending. You're here to learn how to keep your hands steady when your heart is hammering at 200 beats per minute. I'm going to teach you how to cheat death. She walked down the center aisle, stopping in front of a recruit whose hands were trembling. She looked at his hands, then his eyes, and gave him a genuine, encouraging smile. Some of you have heard stories, she whispered, that I'm a ghost, that I'm hard. She turned back to the board. They're right, but stick with me, and I'll make you unbreakable. Lights out. Let's begin. Lily Mitchell entered that hospital as a ghost and left as a legend. She didn't just save a teammate that day. She saved herself. What do you think? If you were in Dr. Sterling's shoes, would you have listened to the nurse sooner? Or is the hospital hierarchy too hard to break? Let us know in the comments. If you enjoyed this story of redemption, hit that like button and subscribe for more dramas every Tuesday and Friday. Thanks for watching, and stay safe.